I didn't notice the light when it appeared. I noticed it when it stayed. That difference matters more than people think. Out there, nothing stays still for long. The land breathes, even when it looks empty. The sky slides without asking. Shadows stretch, break apart, then quietly rearrange themselves somewhere else. Even the dark moves, adjusting itself around your eyes as they struggle to keep up. But this didn't. It stayed exactly where it was, as if it had already chosen that place long before we arrived. We weren't telling stories when it began. The fire had already burned past that stage. The flames were low and inward facing, conserving themselves, glowing more than burning. The heat was steady, comfortable, familiar. Conversation had thinned out naturally, not stopped, just slowed until silence felt heavier than words. That was when I noticed something didn't belong. Not a shape, not a beam. Just a soft glow pressed into the dark where there shouldn't have been anything at all. Low to the ground, too low to be a star, too steady to be flame. Far enough away that distance stopped making sense the longer I tried to judge it. I watched it without thinking. That's usually when things begin. I told myself it was nothing. A trick of contrast. Firelight playing games with tired eyes. I'd been out there long enough to know better than to trust the dark completely. But the light didn't behave like a trick. It didn't flicker. It didn't drift. It didn't respond to the fire. It simply existed. Someone beside me shifted their weight. Boots scraped dirt. Denim brushed against fabric. The sound felt louder than it should have, sharp in the quiet. The light moved. Not toward us, not away. Just enough to remain aligned. My stomach tightened before my thoughts caught up. Coincidences happen once. Patterns happen when something is paying attention. I didn't say anything. None of us did. There's a moment in situations like that where everyone knows something has changed, but no one wants to be the one to say it out loud. Naming something gives it weight. Once it has weight, it can demand space. The fire cracked softly, a familiar sound that suddenly felt intrusive. The light didn't react. That bothered me more than if it had. I tried to work out how far away it was. Failed. Every estimate collapsed the longer I looked. It didn't feel close or distant. It felt placed, like distance wasn't the right way to measure it. Eventually, someone whispered, "Do you see that?" The words barely carried. No one answered. Not because we didn't hear, but because the question wasn't meant to be answered. It was confirmation, not curiosity. The light brightened slightly, just enough to remove doubt. We leaned closer together without discussing it. Knees touched, shoulders overlapped. The fire no longer felt like the center of the space. It was just something we were sitting near. The light stayed beyond the fire's reach. That boundary mattered. Fire was ours. Beyond it was not. Time stopped behaving properly after that. Minutes stretched and folded back on themselves. I stopped checking how long it had been because time didn't feel useful anymore. What mattered was that the light hadn't moved. Someone adjusted their legs. The light adjusted. Someone leaned forward, The light leaned too, always subtle, always controlled, like it didn't want to be caught reacting. I became aware of my breathing, of how loud it sounded to me, of how deliberate every movement felt. Even swallowing felt like a decision. I thought about standing up, not walking toward it, just standing, changing the balance of the space. The thought alone tightened my chest. I knew it would respond, and whatever it did would mean something I wasn't ready to understand. A hand reached for another log, then hesitated. The fire was low. Adding wood felt necessary, but also risky, like speaking too loudly in a place that preferred quiet. The log was placed carefully. The fire flared. Sparks lifted and vanished into the dark. The light dimmed, not disappeared, not retreated, but dimmed, like it acknowledged the exchange. That was worse. It felt like we'd completed something without knowing the rules. After that, the light didn't move again. Neither did we. The silence pressed in, thick and patient, not threatening, expectant, like it was waiting to see what we would give up first, the fire, each other, or our nerve. I tried not to look at it, but it was impossible to forget where it was. Even when my eyes weren't on it, my awareness stayed fixed in that direction, like part of me had been assigned to watch it without permission. Hours passed by. We didn't know, even if it didn't feel like it then. The fire sank lower. The heat softened. The night deepened around us. The light never crossed into the firelight. It never needed to. Eventually, the sky began to change. Not brightening, just thinning. The black loosened its grip enough to remind us that morning still existed somewhere. The light faded with it, not vanishing, stepping back, as if it had simply decided it had seen enough. In daylight, there was nothing. No marks, no tracks, no explanation. The ground looked exactly the way it always did. But our seats were closer together than I remembered, and none of us remembered moving. I still think about that night when fires burn low and the dark feels interested. I think about how patient the light was and how it never moved first. Some stories were meant to stay buried. Comment what tales you'd like to hear next.
Like and subscribe for more.